There once was a time when the only Mandalorians seen on screen were fan favorites who died in the most underwhelming of ways. But thanks to the success of shows like The Clone Wars, Rebels, and of course, The Mandalorian, that's all changed. And we're not even taking into account the vast amount of Legends material that existed previously. Mandalorians are now on another level of popularity, and that's all thanks to Baby Yoda. I'm joking, put down the Beskar pitchforks. Over the last number of weeks, we've been covering the various armies in Star Wars and discussing their classes of infantry units, from Republic ARC troopers to Imperial Death Troopers and Separatist droidicas. And thanks to plenty of suggestions in the comments of those videos, today we're taking things in another direction and bringing you every single Mandalorian warrior variant explained. Before we begin, we must clarify that we're discussing variations of the infantry units, not necessarily different houses or clans of Mandalorians. For example, Death Watch or the Night Owls. That's another video for another day. We're more going to focus on variations in armor, weaponry, and specializations of these Mandalorians. A few characteristics remain consistent through them all. Beskar armor, which protected the wearer from blaster fire and was lightsaber resistant. Helmets with a T-shaped visor, and individualized armor which could reflect personal accomplishments, clan affiliation, or simply personal preference. But let's dive into the various types of Mandalorian warriors. This is the way. We begin with our first variant, the Mandalorian Crusaders, the very first documented Mandalorians established by Mandalore I. The Mandalorian Crusaders placed the highest value on gaining honor and glory in combat. The Crusaders roamed space, seeking war, making conquered worlds their home. Mandalorian Crusaders wore individually customized armor, often incorporating organic materials, with the hard parts of the armor decorated with spikes and straps. It had a jagged, organic, bone-like form that varied from soldier to soldier. The design of Crusader armor was centered on defending its wearer during melee combat, which the ancient Mandalorians considered to be the most honorable form of battle. Crusaders often employed Zim Systems rocket packs, an early version of the more modern jetpack. The warriors were known to ride the open-mount BASILISK war droids in space. The Crusader armor was airtight and included enough oxygen to allow a Mandalorian Crusader 10 hours of breathable air in the vacuum of space, likely a result of the mounts. The Mandalorian NEO-CRUSADERs came next, an evolution of the Crusaders led by Mandalore the Ultimate after the Great Sith War. Neo-Crusader armor was standardized, with suits colored to correspond with the position of the wearer, in order to foster a sense of unity among the many species being recruited into the Neo-Crusader movement. Neo-Crusader armor came in 4 colors, each corresponding to a rank: silver for veterans on the front line, gold for field marshals, crimson for rally masters, and blue for all others. Later in the war, new armors were developed for use by special units, such as the Neo-Crusader shock troopers. The armor had a few advantages over the earlier Crusader armor, including a harder surface. The Mandalorian Neo-Crusaders indeed used Beskar iron to forge their armor, and guarded the secret of producing it from the rest of the galaxy. However, the process of forging Beskar was incredibly long and extremely tedious during this period of galactic history. A millennia later, we arrive at the true Mandalorian Super Commandos, not to be confused with another version of Super Commando that we'll get to in a few minutes. The Mandalorian Super Commando armor was developed to replace the older designs. It was no longer full-body armor, but partial armor that left non-vital limbs almost completely undefended, and focused on its strength on the vital areas, such as the torso, head, and groin. The new armor was a collection of blast-resistant plates, which were attached to a flight suit. This careful layering of segmented armor plates ensured mobility, which could be further increased by wearing a jetpack. At this point, Mandalorians also began to see the value of extra weapons mounted on their suits, and therefore dart shooters, grappling wires, wrist-mounted rocket launchers, and flamethrowers were added to the overall assault capabilities of a Mandalorian Super Commando's armor. Death Watch was a Mandalorian terrorist splinter group led by Pre Vizsla of House Vizsla that opposed the pacifist government of the New Mandalorians and Duchess Satine Kryze during the Clone Wars. Death Watch had their own version of Mandalorian armor, similar to the true Mandalorians, made from Beskar that originated from the mines of one of Mandalore's moons, Concordia. Death Watch wore predominantly blue armor with shoulder armor insignias to identify ranks or specializations. Airborne troopers specialized in the use of airborne tactics. They were designated with a yellow and red symbol. Flamethrower troopers specialized in the use of flamethrowers. Their insignia was black and yellow. Grappling troopers utilized whipcord launchers against enemies and were designed with a black and white symbol that also appeared on their chest plates. Most of Death Watch's forces carried Galar 15 blaster carbines or Westar 35 blaster pistols. After Darth Maul killed the Death Watch leader Pre Vizsla in battle and proclaimed himself as leader of Death Watch and rightful owner of the Darksaber, Death Watch split in two. Many remained with Maul, while others believed an outsider could not sit upon the Mandalorian throne and fled under the leadership of bo-katan Kryze. While those who left with bo-katan remained relatively unchanged from their Death Watch look, Darth Maul's new Mandalorian Super Commandos underwent a drastic makeover. They altered their Beskar armor to reflect their allegiance to the Dathomirian. In addition to painting their armor red and black, some commandos sought to better resemble their Night Brother leader by fashioning horns onto their helmets. The Imperial Super Commandos, led by former Maul loyalist Gar Saxon, were Mandalorian warriors loyal to the Galactic Empire and disgraces to the Mandalorian way. Their Imperial Super Commando armor bore visual similarities to stormtroopers in order to reflect their alignment with the Imperial regime. It was typically all white, however it could be highlighted with various colors to denote status. Saxon, as the Imperial Viceroy of Mandalore, added red paint, and Tristan Wren, while a member of the Imperial Super Commandos, had yellow shoulder tips. Their helmets also had unique visors, and they were armed with less traditional Mandalorian blasters. The Mandalorian Protectors served as royal guards for the ruler of Mandalore and maintained balance in the warrior culture. The Mandalorian Protectors were one of the few traditions to continue during the time of the new Mandalorians, charged with protecting Duchess Satine. They were trained to show restraint in most situations, but could remain a formidable fighting force. The Royal Guard wielded staffs and wore heavy armor and an elaborate helmet to protect their body. This unique uniform represented Mandalore's traditions of gallantry and discipline while simultaneously rejecting the bloody and violent past of the warrior clans. The Journeyman Protectors were a sect of Mandalorian protectors based on Concord Dawn. The Journeyman Protectors notably flew the Fang-class starfighter and were known as the best pilots in the sector. Their armor was specifically designed for their role as elite pilots. Like Clone or TIE Pilot armor, it featured a chest-mounted breathing apparatus. Originally aligning with the Empire, the Journeyman Protector's Skull leader, Fen Rao, eventually joined the rebellion. Mandalorian Crusader Mark II armor was developed by the Black Sun for the Galactic Empire during the Galactic Civil War. The Mark II armor resembled the NEO-CRUSADER light armor, developed about 4,000 years prior, but was made from alum, which was less tough than Beskar. The armor was worn by several Imperial officers throughout Star Wars Legends, even the Emperor's Hand, Mara Jade. Heavy infantry Mandalorians were incredibly rare. The only one we know of so far is Paz Vizsla. As you can probably guess, heavy infantry Mandalorians wore thicker and larger Beskar armor with reinforced plating and wielded heavy weapons. Paz Vizsla's left vambrace was equipped with a large wrist-mounted flamethrower and a shield projector. He also often wielded a heavy blaster cannon and vibro knife. He wore a comma and jetpack with gravity stabilizers for flight balance. His helmet had a rangefinder. The idea of Paz Vizsla originated with Mandalorian writer and director Jon Favreau, who wanted to include a Mandalorian that had heavy armor such that they resembled a Mandalorian warrior on steroids. Concept artists worked hard to visualize those ideas, creating a number of designs for the character before the one we know was decided upon. By the time of the Second Imperial Civil War, 130 years after the Battle of Yavin in Legends, Mandalorian armor had taken on a more segmented appearance, providing the warrior with maximum coverage and mobility. The helmet design was seemingly inspired by early Boba Fett concept art, and went on to sorta appear in canon, worn by Obi-Wan Kenobi, disguised as the bounty hunter Raquel Hardeen. But which Mandalorian variant is your favorite? Whose armor do you think is the coolest? Let me know in the comments. Come join us to chat more at our community Discord server, linked in the description. If you enjoyed today's Star Wars video, we've got more on the screen for you right now. Also make sure to drop a like, and if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe to join the Red Squadron. Until next time, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you. Red 5, standing by.